Welcome to an overview of our DynamxMFG platform. So manufacturing technology typically starts at the accounts and office level. What makes Dynamx different is it's driven from the shop floor. The premise, what is really happening, can drive the keys to what's need to be improved and capture what is working well. So with some light touch setup, you can track a finished good through production, consume stock in real time, and then dispatch. So we're going to start at the shop floor. As you can see, the screen in front of you is our login screen. There are multiple ways to log in using QR codes, which can be scanned as an ID badge, or your employee number and PIN can be typed in, or if you have a front-facing camera, that as well can be scanned, and it will log into our shop floor interface. Once we're in, the worker, the shop floor, will be able to see a number of jobs that they'll be able to work on. This could be based and set to their skill sets, their permissions, the machinery that they might be able to use. That way, giving them a clear indication of what they need to work on. Once complete, what's next? Creating that efficiency, taking away the confusion, and giving them a clear indication of what needs to be done. As we can see, then we'll have a few options to select from. And if we click into one of the jobs, it should bring up a number of information. So from this screen, we can see the work center, so where the work will be taking place. We can see who the employee is that is working on this particular operation. We can see a time that is set for this operation to take place, so how long it should take, as well as the next operation where it should be going to once this has been completed. We have access to the bill of materials. We can then go into stock files so we can look at any specifications, any work to lists, as well as clicking on an image of the item and what it should look like once completed. Great for new starters, apprentices, or any changes made from a client. These can be uploaded. Now you can see the workers as a list of options at the bottom, a pause, a stop, and a green tick. And this is to make things relatively simple, straightforward. Worker gets called away, they can pause that job that they're working on. That will then get pinned to the top, highlighted in blue, so they know exactly what job they need to go back to. And then once clicked back in, they can then resume. If for any reason the job needs to be stopped, and that could be for any particular reason, it could be a missing part, a damaged part, whatever's relevant to the business, they can select that stoppage, select the reason, and that job will be then put on stop. And the relevant people will be notified immediately of any stoppages so they can see what the problem is, sort that out, and then get production back underway. Once been sorted, the worker then commences, and when ready to complete the job, to click on the green tick at the bottom of the screen. And like we said, it's to keep things nice and simple. All the information is captured, timings are captured in real time. And the purpose is not to add any challenges to the worker's day, but to make things nice and simple. Now we're going to go over to the management panel and over to our sales orders. So we're just going to show how to raise a sales order. These can be done automatically from your account software. But we're just going to take you through creating a sales order, the information that you can capture, and then releasing that onto the shop floor. As you can see, you're able to set the priority. the required and production date, the information in terms of delivery, where it's going to be dispatched to, and so forth. We can add in any references, any specialized notes, any additional comments, and then selecting the item that the customer is ordering. We can then save it as a quote for now, or we can save it for later if it's something we need to come back to. As we can see, we got a number of quotes and completed and released sales orders, but you can quickly just select the quotes and that will filter everything out and pick up the most relevant. We can go into that, and from here to display all the information from the client, to display what has been ordered, and once it's in the quote stage, we're able to then make any adjustments. So if the client does come back, we want to change the quantity, there might be a discount applied, whatever that may be, we're then able to make those changes quickly whilst it's actually in the quote status. Some additional boxes on the left where we are able to fill in some additional information, as well as capturing any specifications or any up-to-date files from the client, which can then get loaded against this customer sales order. Again, all notes, any changes made are captured directly against that for traceability and a full history, as well as you're able to go directly onto the client notes and make any and add any notes you may want to or may need to. We are moving just over to our stock inventory. So we see we have a number of different stock listed items, components that would then go into an actual build. We also have a sub-assembly, and then we have our finished goods, which is our torches that we're currently building. We can see a number of lines on the right, so it shows off the availability, quantity, if there's anything that's in production. And we can actually then go into and have a deeper look. We can see the inventory loaded up against the items, what they should look like, capturing anything from stock codes and reference codes, costings and pricings, any of the stock level items in terms of the amount of stock you should have. We are able to load up videos and URLs against the stock item, as well as any specifications in terms of dimensions to the build. And then very importantly, be able to serialize the components that go into that. So if a component fails, you're able to then have traceability. So we can trace it back to the batch, see if it's a one-off or is in fact a fault with that full batch. And you might have to do a recall, but you'll be able to look at that traceability. We're able to then also list the suppliers for this particular item. And that could be based on costings and lead times. So you can have your set suppliers, number one, and then you can set additional suppliers. And they could be for priority work. We click into the route for this build. We can see where it's taking place. That would be our torch center. We can then see the operation, so what is being done. We can then see the materials, so what is being consumed, and then we can see the routes, the order they need to happen in. At this stage as well, any of the routes can be edited. So you're able to add additional operations, additional routes, additional materials to be consumed if need be. As we know, manufacturing is very agile, constantly changing. So you need to have a digital platform that you can make those changes on the fly when you need to. And lastly, we can see our design BOM, our bill of materials, as well as our manufacturing BOM. And this will display averages and costing and selling prices. So now that we've seen how to create demand, which is our orders, and how the demand knows what needs to be done, which is our routes, next is production, which is where the control of what is seen on the shop floor happens. So as you can see, we have a number of works orders that have been created. We have some that have been completed, some that have been released onto the shop floor. So these will be ready to be worked on. And you're able to dive deeper into each, and we can actually have a look at the sales order to make sure everything is correct, everything is matching up. We can have a look at the allocation overview, so we can see that we actually have an item in stock where we can either go and collect it off the shop floor, off the stock, and have that directly shipped to the client, or we can actually keep that in stock to make sure our stock levels are at a certain number, a certain order, and actually go ahead and choose to build this item, which we'll do. From there, work on the shop floor, you can log in, pick up that job, and then start that, which we've seen already, as this would take you back to the shop floor. And next, we would like to have a look at is our tracking screens. So from our tracking screens, this is where our works order are tracked. We can have a look at times, requirement dates, priorities, etc. And the same goes for employee monitoring, which we'll have a look through as well. So from here, we can see the item that has been built, the works order. We can see the required by dates. From this particular screen, we can see the last stage that the operation took place, who was working on that, the current stage, the status, as well as who's working on it and where it needs to go to next. Now, these screens could be set up for different views, so it could be set for the different departments. It could be the sub-assemblies, it could be where the pre-builds are. And each screen could be set up for the staff on the shop floor to view, as well as project managers, and that way they could have a look at how each department is performing, if there are any issues, any stoppages, anything that needs to be addressed in to ensure that manufacturing is run smoothly and that is kept to schedule. We then have overview screens, again displaying similar information. So we can see we have our works orders, reference numbers against, we have our required by dates, our priority settings, and then very importantly, our late setting. Now, as we've shown earlier, whilst we're going through the routes, there's a time allocated to each operation. So this is a time set that each operation should be completed. And as everything's running real time and captured in real time as it's running through the manufacturing plant, if an operation goes over that allocated time, it would flag up late. Now, the full build hasn't run late yet, but if it continues at that rate, it will go late. But it gives you the opportunity to then make a decision. Are we able to add more resources? Are we able to ship it to perhaps another machine? Or worst case scenario, are we able to let the client know ahead of time that unfortunately we won't be able to meet the deadline? Rather than as opposed to the item being late and you notified when it's late. And that way, unfortunately, nothing can be done and you're letting a client know last minute. So it gives you that opportunity. We can also see the status of the build, if it's been completed, if work's pending, if the work is stopped. We can see the tasks, so the amount of operations that have been completed so far, as well as the time that's allocated to the full build and the amount of time that it's actually taken for it to be completed. We can then see the work order lines, again very similar, so this would also display your sales orders. So it would give us some additional information, which you can then also drill down into the sales order or just see an overview screen. Again, you are able to filter these out, search by work orders, search by sales orders, or the search by the item that you want to basically have a look at and just track through. And from there, we can also see if there have been any amount of stoppages potentially to one of those works orders. it's taken longer than expected. And if it's notifying that there were 2 or 3 stoppages, we'll be able to display that and see that quite quickly and easily. And if we go to our tracked allocation, again, very similar to the previous screens, this just displaying the actual route that it follows, so we can see the operations at each route, and we can drill down into each one and actually see who started, the time that they started, and when they completed that operation, as well as the materials that were consumed at that operation. So at any stage, you can drill down into each works order, being able to track exactly who had their hands on those items at what operation, when it was started, how long it took, when it was completed, were there any issues, and obviously was the right materials consumed. Moving over to the employee monitoring, again, you're able to see your team on the day, so the resources that you have, the amount of man hours. We can have a look in what works orders they were working on, the description of the item. We are able to look at the stage, so the stage of the operation that was completed or where they're currently working on, and then at the current status, so it's been completed, has it started, any stoppages, any pause, or if there's anything that's still pending that needs to be started. Again, just giving you a quick overview. If we have a look at John Smith, his job is stopped. Do we need to move John over to another operation whilst we are sorting out that current stoppage issue? And that way, just ensuring efficiency across the shop floor and ensuring that work is continuing while we sort out the problem. Now, there are many bonus or kind of detailed, features that Dynamics offers. Unfortunately, we can't show all of them. But one in particular we do want to highlight, and it is something that, at every event that we've attended, manufacturing events or clients that we speak to, and any of the webinars that we've been on, it's an area that's really important to manufacturers. It's an area that the information captured there is really relevant, and that's the ability to capture when an item needs to be reworked, so that additional time and resources. If an item needs to be remade, scrapped, and any parts potentially could be salvaged, which we'll go through. So if an item is at the point that it's able to be reworked, so could be a damaged surface that might need to be sanded down, another clear coat added, we're able then to update the route, where we can add in an additional operation that will capture the additional materials used, the resources, the time allocated against that. So if there is an additional cost into that, there's an opportunity to showcase why, or it might just be, charged the same, but we can see where those additional resources were used. If unfortunately the item is damaged beyond being able to be reworked and it needs to be remade, we can then look at items that might be able to be salvaged. So in the case of the torch, it might be that the torch body is badly damaged, but the batteries inside, along with the battery case, is unscathed. Brand new, hasn't been damaged, and we're then able to book that back into stock and then use that for a future build. And as we can see, we can salvage those items. That will go back into our inventory. Inventory will update immediately as it does in real time, and those items can then be used on another build. What we'll showcase next is, as we spoke about that torch case being badly damaged, it unfortunately needs to be scrapped, so we aren't able to rework it or to salvage it. But scrappage is really important, as there's a cost against each item that is scrapped. So you want to be able to book it into a containment stock location, but have a line of sight of what's been booked in there. So what amount of items have been scrapped? What is the value? Which is really important. And that you're able to do. After going through a rework, remake, scratch and salvage. One of my favorite screens, and it's just a great overview of the operational side. Is we're going to take you through to our dashboard, and from the dashboards, they could be set up in multiple different ways. The widgets have been built into the system, so very easy to set up, and you just got to select what you'd like to see. But we can see that we have set up stoppages, so we can see the description, we can see what the stoppage reason is, we can see the works order, and we can see the reason for why the stoppage has occurred. We also have our low stock level items, so we can see what the description is, the level, and what the reorder level should be. We can have a look at any overdue purchase orders, any upcoming orders, any released orders, and so forth. Now, these dashboards can be set up per department, so you could have one just with stoppages, and that could be set to your engineering team, it could be set to your production manager who has access to view that. And obviously, as soon as a stoppage occurs, it's on display, and they're able then to make a decision to obviously get operations back up and running. You can then set an additional one up that is for the procurement team, so your buying team, and that could be your purchase orders, any overdue purchase orders, your low-level stock items, so they can keep a monitor and track of items that are dropping below the stock levels that it should be at, or if anything has gone over the date for the purchase orders, and it's easy to then follow up and chase and make sure that everything's back on track. And again, same for your cons with overdue orders, with any quotes that have been sent out and so forth. So really great screens to be able to set up, really simple and easy, but just gives each department such a quick look into their area, and so easy to then follow up and make sure that everything is where it should be. And then lastly, all the data that has been collected on the system is useless if you are unable to use it. And we have multiple reports built into the system, from your inventory to resources, and of course into your sales margins. So all the reports are exportable, and you're able to then look into stock valuation, you're able to look into employee productivity, operation production demand. We can look at stopped orders, so you can try picking up trends and patterns if it's certain machines or certain jobs that are constantly stopped and why they're happening. You can look at sale order margin reports. Are we underquoting? Are we overquoting? Or, price of stock has gone up when our margins have dropped. These reports, you can be pulled on an hourly, on a daily, on a weekly, quarterly, yearly, whatever it may be, and you can compare month to month, quarter to quarter, and so forth, however you see fit, and really start to look at those patterns and kind of see what their data is showing, and then being able to make a decision on that. So that's also stop tour of our Dynamx platform. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining me.